Today on Investigate TV, a woman serving life in prison, a doctor's decision helped put her away. Now he admits he was wrong.
That I made a mistake on my conclusions.
No one shook this child. No one abused this child. The jury was relying on the wrong information.
Plus, specialists labeling evidence they were once certain about junk science, calling dozens of convictions into question.
I got caught up in this. I drank that Kool-Aid, and at the end of the day, it's smoke and mirrors.
Investigate TV starts now. Hello and welcome to Investigate TV. I'm Lee Zurich. A stepmother convicted of murdering her child, but for decades, she's maintained her innocence. And now she's asking a judge to dismiss her case. New evidence surfaced, evidence so compelling, one juror says he would have changed his verdict. Andy Pierrotti tells us how a medical diagnosis now believed unreliable put thousands of people in prison.
Henny Warner answers the phone from someone who has not seen freedom in 25 years.
This call is from a correction facility and is subject to monitoring and recording.
On the other end of the line, her niece, Tasha Mercedes Shelby, calling from inside Central Mississippi Correctional.
So, I went to my interview with the 1A program, and I was accepted.
You were? And how long does it go for?
For 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you'll be home before then. You won't be able to finish.
Amen. Yes.
Manifesting a prison release that may never happen. After a jury convicted Tasha of murdering her 2-year-old stepson, Brian Thompson, at this trailer park in this bedroom in Biloxi, Mississippi in 1997.
What was your reaction when she got arrested?
It was just absolute shock. And she was so scared.
According to police records, Tasha told investigators, "I was asleep in my bedroom, heard a big thump, and found Brian was lying on the floor, having what looked like a seizure." But the state's medical examiner ruled Brian's death a homicide, telling the jury the boy died from blunt force injuries to his head, caused by shaking. Prosecutors called it shaken baby syndrome. The jury sentenced Tasha to life in prison without parole. She was 25 years old with no prior criminal record.
No one shook this child. No one abused this child. The jury was relying on the wrong information.
Valina Beatty is Tasha's attorney. Earlier this year, she filed a petition in federal court asking a judge to dismiss the case and set Tasha free after uncovering new evidence from an unlikely source. Dr. Leroy Reddick, the same medical examiner who ruled the child's death a homicide, changed the death certificate to an accident in 2018, 18 years later.
How rare is it for a medical examiner to change a death ruling?
Incredibly rare. Dr. Riddick testified in hundreds of cases. He performed autopsies in even more cases. And this is the only case where he changed his opinion.
Today, Dr. Reddick can't say why he changed Brian's manner of death. He passed away 2 years ago.
Nothing but the truth to help you God.
I do.
But he did explain himself in this recorded deposition in 2017.
If you could tell the prosecutors or the detectives something different today about the results, what would you say?
That I made a mistake on my conclusions, and that given the information I have now, that the child died from hypoxic encephalopathy with herniation due to seizure disorder.
A brain injury due to a seizure disorder. Remember, it's exactly what Tasha told police she witnessed Brian suffering from after falling from his bed.
Well, we thought, they're going to let her go.
There was no homicide. You can't keep someone in prison if there's no homicide. And they're not letting her go.
Why isn't she free?
The judge ultimately decided that he believed the testimony of Dr. Riddick at trial more than he believed the testimony of Dr. Riddick at this hearing, that he simply wasn't convinced.
The twists and turns don't end there. We've uncovered the medical examiner isn't the only person involved in the original trial who believes mistakes were made.
I think about that too.
Enter Daniel Mullen, juror number 42. He's one of the original jurors who not only voted to convict Tasha, but wanted to see her sentenced to death.
The first time around, it was a unanimous vote that she was guilty.
2 decades later, Daniel now believes Tasha is innocent after learning about Brian's disorder and the family's history of seizures, details he doesn't remember as a major part of the case. According to court records, Brian also had an appointment scheduled with a neurologist before his death that he never made. All of this resonates with the former juror. His son suffered from violent seizures as a child.
A baby with seizures. When I start talking about seizures, I tear up. And it's something you don't want to see.
Knowing what you know today, would you have convicted her?
I never would have convicted her. Never. That night, I laid in my chair half the night thinking about it.
What were you thinking?
If we made a mistake, it cost that girl 22 years of her life.
According to the Medill Justice Project at Northwestern University in 2015, prosecutors have used shaken baby syndrome diagnoses to charge at least 3,000 people with abuse or murder. And while Tasha waits for a new judge to rule on her case, we've uncovered at least 21 people charged with crimes connected to the diagnoses that have had their convictions overturned since 2019. Why were most of their charges reversed? Evolving science, many experts say, proves the diagnosis is unreliable. For decades, pediatric traumatic brain injuries could only be explained with blunt force trauma, like car accidents, falls, or violently shaking a child. Today, new science shows those same injuries can also be linked to illnesses and biological issues, like seizure disorders.
Had all sorts of examinations.
Dr. Riddick said the change in science compelled him to change Brian's death certificate.
Severe seizures that are lasting for a period of time, that the brain stem is shut off and you don't breathe and you get hypoxia. You don't get enough oxygen to your brain and you die.
The district attorney's office in Biloxi, which originally prosecuted Tasha, declined to comment on the case. So did Mississippi's attorney general, now fighting her appeal.
It's to get them ready to go back into society.
Tasha wanted to share her story with us on camera, but Mississippi's Department of Corrections declined our request. Instead,
An inmate at the Mississippi
we spoke to her by phone just outside prison walls.
Did you ever shake little Brian? Ever?
Never.
Never.
No, sir.
And did you ever hit him or beat him?
No, sir.
What's your message to this judge that will be making this decision?
To please thoroughly read everything from beginning to end. See how the science has changed. Look at the facts. Be courageous and right this wrong.
The district attorney's office in Biloxi, which originally prosecuted Tasha, declined to comment on the case. So did Mississippi's attorney general, who is currently fighting the appeal. Tasha's fate has two possibilities. Mississippi's governor can grant her clemency, or a federal judge will decide whether to grant her release. Coming up, dozens of overturned convictions tied by a common thread, discredited bite mark analysis. We follow one man's quest for a new trial after the break. Welcome back to Investigate TV. Evidence once used to send people to prison is now considered flawed forensics. Since 2005, more than 30 people incarcerated for bite mark evidence have been exonerated or had their indictments dismissed. And a man on death row since the 1980s could get a new trial because of it. Andy Pierrotti has the details.
In a dark room inside a North Georgia library, newspaper headlines take us back to a murder that shocked a small community 42 years ago.
You can't imagine that kind of evil.
A 75-year-old woman, Grace Perry, raped and killed with a yard rake inside her Rome, Georgia home, the room where she's found covered in blood.
All over the bed, all over the floor, against the walls.
This was a butchering.
Yes.
Another woman inside, Edith Polston, was assaulted, managed to escape. She never saw the man's face. Judy Carnes is her daughter.
And had Mama not escaped, I can't imagine what her death would have been like.
Police immediately made an arrest. 19-year-old James Rogers. He was no stranger to the women. Rogers lived next door.
Why was he climbing over the fence into some other neighbor's yard at 12:15 at night? He lived right there next door.
During the investigation, detectives noticed an injury on Rogers' forearm they believe looked like a bite mark. At trial, renowned forensic dentist Dr. Richard Souveron testified with full certainty that the murder victim's teeth matched the bite mark on Rogers. Prosecutors reminded the jury that Dr. Souveron had just helped convict serial killer Ted Bundy, the first nationally televised criminal trial in the U.S. It didn't take long for the jury to find Rogers guilty, sentencing him to death in 1985.
There's no doubt in my mind that Grace beat him.
Nearly 4 decades later, Rogers is still alive, seen here inside this Georgia courtroom this past August, requesting a new trial after his lawyers believe they found new evidence that could set Rogers free.
Defense Exhibit U and V be introduced as evidence.
Chris Fabricant with the Innocence Project is one of Rogers' attorneys.
You cannot execute somebody when we know that the evidence that was used at trial has been entirely discredited.
The evidence at issue, that bite mark found on Rogers. The same forensic dentist who said the victim bit Rogers now believes he got it wrong, writing in this 2020 affidavit that I no longer believe, as I testified at Mr. Rogers' trial, that Grace Perry's teeth, to the exclusion of all others, inflicted the injury on Mr. Rogers' forearm. Fabricant believes the jury convicted Rogers based on Dr. Souveron's original testimony.
Who's been made world famous by the Ted Bundy trial, a known superstar in the forensic field. You're never going to question an expert like that.
This past October, the federal government weighed in on the issue for the first time. After a multi-year study, the National Institute of Standards and Technology issued this scathing report, writing that bite mark analysis lacks a sufficient scientific foundation, explaining that human skin is not a reliable surface to analyze because it changes over time depending on swelling, healing, and skin elasticity. Since 2005, more than 30 people incarcerated for bite mark evidence have been exonerated or had their indictments dismissed, including Sheila Denton, sentenced to life in prison for a 2004 murder in Waycross, Georgia.
Sheila, if you sit right there just a second.
2 years ago, a Ware County judge ruled the bite mark evidence used to convict Denton was unreliable, saying it should never serve as a basis of a conviction. She spent nearly 2 decades in prison for a crime she did not commit.
Do you hold any resentment or anger about what happened to you?
Yes, I was just mad because I missed almost 17 years of my life locked up.
4 decades, the American Board of Forensic Odontology, the organization that accredits forensic dentists, pushed back against skeptics who disagreed with its science.
Then you create distortions.
Until Dr. Adam Freeman became its president in 2015. Right after he took over the board, Freeman asked his fellow forensic dentists to compare dozens of bite marks with dental impressions. The results? These highly trained experts were unable to agree on whether they matched, and some couldn't even confirm the samples were bite marks at all.
Our jaws were falling open. We were just, the blood drained out of my face.
He resigned from the organization shortly after, concerned with the reliability of this science.
Listen, I got caught up in this. I drank that Kool-Aid. I wanted to become board certified. That was like, the pinnacle was going to be the pinnacle of my career. And at the end of the day, it's smoke and mirrors.
In your opinion, is your former organization responsible for putting innocent people behind bars?
100%. 100%. It's just about telling the truth, that there's innocent people in jail convicted based on this junk science. And bite marks are junk science. They are the epitome of junk science.
A new book published this year called Junk Science highlights the problem. It's written by Chris Fabricant, Rogers' attorney. It chronicles a list of flawed forensics used to put people in prison for decades. Fabricant believes Rogers is among those wrongfully imprisoned.
And what he really needs is a fair trial, one where there's no cheating with junk science, and a fair adjudication of the facts of the case.
The district attorney's office says Rogers got a fair shake the first time.
Your Honor, there was ample evidence presented at this trial without the bite mark evidence that would have convicted Mr. Rogers.
Judy Carnes agrees. She points to Rogers' alleged confession and his fingerprint prosecutors claim was found on the murder weapon. Where she sits, the evolving science isn't enough to convince her the jury got it wrong.
Everything improves over time, the way you do things. That's what they had to work with way back then. But does everyone get a new trial because of it? They know they're guilty. They do not want anyone left on death row, and they will keep doing these cases until death row is emptied.
A man a jury once thought deserved to die for a heinous crime, still alive and making headlines 4 decades later.
The district attorney's office declined to be interviewed for this story. A county judge will determine whether Rogers will get a new trial. There is no timeline for that decision. Up next, a prosecutor fixing past wrongs, a man freed, and another form of scientific analysis invalidated. We have the details after the break. Welcome back to Investigate TV. A horrific killing. A boy lost his mother, then the nightmare got worse. Michael Polite spent more than half of his life in prison, accused of murder. Experts say faulty science put him away, but now some small steps toward possible vindication. Angie Racono has more.
In 1998, Rita Polite was beaten, then set on fire inside her rural Hopewell, Missouri trailer.
I opened my bedroom door and there's a wall of smoke.
Her son Michael originally told us about that awful day from prison.
And I knelt down to see what I could see. And when I did, I seen my mother's legs, and I seen blood on her legs, and she was on fire from her waist up.
Michael was 14 at the time.
Fear. I remember the hair on the back of my neck raising up. I didn't know what to do. I mean, what is a 14-year-old kid supposed to do in that moment?
Michael has always maintained his innocence. He didn't have scratches or cuts on him, but a police dog alerted investigators to his shoes. Testing revealed gasoline. It was powerful evidence at trial, and the jury convicted him. Turns out that evidence was false. The substance detected on the petitioner's shoes was not gasoline. It was instead aromatic solvent used in the manufacture of the tennis shoes. The state crime lab admits it too. It is now known that solvents in footwear adhesives have similarities to gasoline. Michael Polite was released from prison in April 22. It was due to new sentencing guidelines for juveniles, not because anyone admitted a mistake was made.
Let's go, man.
He rode off on a bicycle. That's because he never learned how to drive a car. At that time, he vowed to clear his name and fight for the truth.
What kept you going? My mother. This is all for her, man. This is her. This is an honor of her. Yep, justice for Rita. This is her moment also. She's smiling today.
The current prosecutor supported this release and even wrote the parole board in support of Michael, something he's never done before. He's now calling for a judge to set aside Polite's conviction. His new 30-page motion spells out how physical evidence used in Michael's conviction was wrong. In light of the scientific evidence, Mr. Polite's conviction cannot be sustained. Hedgecorth also noted police ignored the history of domestic violence and events surrounding the divorce between Rita Polite and her ex-husband Ed Polite, Michael's father. But Hedgecorth lost his bid for re-election last year, and the Missouri Supreme Court pressed pause on his effort to clear Michael's name.
Thanks, Angie. Coming up, a warning from the FBI, the form of payment that may be leaving you open to fraud and massive losses. That's after the break. Welcome back to Investigate TV. In 2022, online shopping made up about 15% of U.S. retail, and e-commerce sales hit about $1 trillion. Shopping from behind a screen may be convenient, but it doesn't come without risk. Rachel DePompa explains in this week's Watching Your Wallet.
The FBI, FTC, and countless other experts offer the same advice here. Always use a credit card when shopping online. Because if a criminal steals your information, they're not able to wipe out your checking account. A debit card doesn't always offer the same protections as a credit card.
Even if your financial institution covers theft on your debit cards, it still immediately comes out of your account if there's fraud. And it could take weeks, even longer, to get that fixed.
Cherry Dale, a financial coach with the Virginia Credit Union, says credit cards are protected under the Fair Credit Billing Act, but debit cards are not. If you don't end up receiving what you paid for, the FCBA allows you to dispute the charge on your credit card as a billing error. On the other hand, only some debit card issuers actually offer protections because they're not required to do so. Lee, back to you.
Thanks, Rachel. And that's it for us. Thanks for joining us here on Investigate TV. Hope to see you next week.